Hi everyone, this is a video edition of the Scattered podcast. I'm Yvonne Chorlin. I'm a physical or biological anthropologist and archaeologist, and this is a short video of my contribution to the Alberta portion of a cross-Canada scavenging project led by Dr. Sherry Forbes. To learn more about Sherry and the origin of this project, listen to episode 16 of the audio portion of this podcast. In a nutshell, law enforcement need to recover as much potential forensic evidence as possible to help solve cases. They approach Sherry with two questions. Where do we search for this evidence and how far do we search for it? To help answer these questions, Sherry wants to identify the scavengers and their scavenging behavior to figure out who may have influenced the movement of this evidence, and then also to map the dispersal of the evidence so we know where it went. By identifying the scavengers and their scavenging behavior and mapping the dispersal of the evidence, we hope to see patterns and be able to answer the two questions of where and how far to search for the remains so that we can answer this for law enforcement. So having these ideas and these questions is all fine and dandy, but how do you do this? How do you identify the scavengers and map the dispersal of the remains? Well, that's where this video comes in. I'm going to show you. As with the Alberta sites, one dressed pig carcass was placed in either a closed or open canopied site. This site is an open canopied site. The pig carcasses for the Saskatchewan sites were placed on June 4th, 2022. A cable was wrapped around the carcass and tied to a tree to try to keep the carcass within the camera frame. 3 cameras were located around the carcass, 1 cell, 1 non-cell, and 1 video to capture any animal activity around or on the carcass, and no trackers were placed on this carcass at this time. Then we set the cameras and we left and waited for the scavengers to show up. Within a couple of weeks of setting out the pig, turkey vultures showed up and started to scavenge. They would peck at the skin and move the clothing, and eventually coyotes began to show up too. They showed up mostly at night to start, and then the turkey vultures and the coyotes took turns scavenging the carcass. Today is June 26, 2023. This is Tway Open in Saskatchewan. This pig was originally placed on June 4th, 2022. It was visited by Sherry on July 14th, 2022. So it's now over a year. It's an open area. We've got an open area in the canopy there. Private landowner's land, so the pig was right there. We had a camera over there, camera over there, and a camera there. So we've got a bit of an outbuilding there, another outbuilding there. We're by a very open area here. You can see where everybody is congregated. So there we go. Again, original deposition point. North is that way, south, west, east. There's not a whole lot left at the original deposition point. There are some pupa casings and just some odd little bones, like the carpals and tarsals and what have you. Quite a bit of stained body staining and dead vegetation. Majority of the remains that we found were in a dispersal here towards the east. Some long bones, ribs, vertebrae. Actually, mostly ribs and vertebrae there. Got a little bit down in there. We've got the shirt right here. This pig was dressed in a shirt and shorts. The shirt is there. And see, the outbuilding is there, so the shorts are back in there. And all dispersal right now within 20 meters. We had a lot of coyotes, juvenile coyotes, multiple coyotes, this location. I'm just gonna give you a back shot here. So again, camera there, camera over here, and video camera there. When I did an inventory on the remains we recovered about 1 year after we deposited the pig, I found that we had recovered about 15% of the skeleton. When I compared this to the Alberta study, I found that it was on par and just a little bit under what we'd found. When I looked at what types of bones made up the remains we recovered, I saw it was mostly vertebrae and ribs, and this was on par with the Alberta study. So what do we know so far? At this site, the main scavengers are coyotes and turkey vultures. The vultures appeared first, and then the coyotes appeared after. The remains we recovered were about 15% of the skeleton, and we recovered mostly ribs and vertebrae near the original deposition point. What have we learned overall across all our sites? We learned that our main scavengers are coyotes, bears, and birds. Game trails can be created or used by scavengers to access the carcass and to disperse the remains. We learned that sometimes there is a difference in the number of remains observed at the preliminary search and the number of remains collected at the final search. We also learned that we mostly collected vertebrae and ribs. This video wouldn't have been possible without the study led by Dr. Shari Forbes. The RCMP were instrumental in helping us find land to use, coordinate the searches and carcasses, and of course, to let us know if this information is useful to them. Many big thanks to the landowners and pig growers. We couldn't have done this research without you. To find out more about this study, tune into my podcast, Scattered, one person's search for the story behind human remains, available on your favorite podcast platform. Also, check out the other videos in this series, available on my website, yvonnechorlin.com, and read about it on my blog and on Facebook.